32 years ago, the Queen's home was engulfed by an inferno. It was on the 20th of November 1992 that a fire broke out inside Windsor Castle in Berkshire. It burned for hours. Flames and smoke were seen rising into the sky. 115 rooms, including 9 staterooms, were completely destroyed. Hundreds of years of history snuffed out in an instant. The fire had started in Queen Victoria's private chapel, where a faulty spotlight ignited a curtain next to the altar. Within minutes, the blaze was quite literally unstoppable and had spread to St George's Hall next door, a room frequently used for state banquets by Queen Elizabeth II. The fire was first spotted around 11:30 in the morning, and within 3 hours, 225 firefighters from 7 counties were battling the flames. At the peak of the operation, they were using 36 pumps, discharging 1.5 million gallons of water. Prince Andrew, who was in the building at the time, telephoned his mother with the devastating news. The Queen travelled to Windsor and arrived at around 3 p.m. She was pictured in the quadrangle, surrounded by firemen. Her press secretary at the time, Dickie Arbiter, said she was very upset. Luckily for the royal family and their staff, the firebreak at the other end of St George's Chapel held back the flames, so the Royal Library was undamaged. As the fire spread, staff hastily began removing works of art from the royal collection from the path of the fire. The castle's quadrangle was full of some of the finest examples of French 18th century furniture, some paintings, porcelain and other treasures of the royal collection. Amazingly, only 2 works of art were lost during the fire, a rosewood sideboard and a very large painting by Sir William Beechey that couldn't be taken down from the wall in time. Luckily, works of art had already been removed from many of the rooms in advance of rewiring work. The fire was finally extinguished at around 2:30 in the morning on Saturday the 21st of November, but it had burned for 15 hours. Then came a very long and very expensive restoration task to restore the castle to its former glory. There were several different options for the Restoration Committee, chaired by the late Duke of Edinburgh, to consider. Should the castle be restored to its appearance on the 19th of November 1992, i.e. the day before the fire, or should a new approach be taken? A combination was agreed on. A new room called the Lantern Lobby created a space where the private chapel used to stand and where the fire had started. This created a formal passageway between the private and state apartments. St George's Hall was restored to a design close to the room's original 14th century appearance, but with a 20th century twist. A new hammer beam roof was constructed from sustainable English oak using traditional methods and tools. All of this, of course, cost a lot of money, a bit of a fortune actually, £36.5 million, which is equivalent to around £74 million in today's money. In order to pay for it, and there was a lot of argument about who should pay for it, the Queen agreed that the public could tour Buckingham Palace and Windsor Castle for the first time when they were charged for tickets. 70% of the restoration cost was raised this way. Queen Elizabeth herself contributed £2 million of her own money to the cause and agreed to pay income tax for the first time as monarch. The official completion date for the restoration project was on the 20th of November 1997, which was 5 years to the day since the devastating fire, and the 50th wedding anniversary of Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh. Windsor Castle's had its fair share of incidents, but also some wonderful celebrations. The King and Queen's coronation concert, for example, that was held on the East Lawn in May 2023, attended by 20,000 people, including myself, and I can assure you it was a wonderful occasion celebrating the start of the new reign. But the castle's also been the location of far more sinister activities. On Christmas Day 2021, a man armed with a crossbow broke into the grounds. Jaswant Singh Chahal was detained close to the late Queen's private apartment, where she and other members of the royal family were staying at the time. The former supermarket worker had scaled a perimeter of the castle with a nylon rope ladder and was in the grounds for around 2 hours before police officers confronted him with tasers. He was armed with the powerful crossbow with a safety catch off, which was capable of firing bolts with lethal effect. Chahal pleaded guilty to an offence under the Treason Act, making a threat to kill the then Queen and having a loaded crossbow in a public place. He was jailed for 9 years with a further 5 years on extended licence. Then, last February, another man was arrested on suspicion of trespass. This time he was unarmed, but he was very close to the King's private apartments. He was detained under the Mental Health Act. Then, in a shocking new development this week, 2 masked raiders broke into an outbuilding not far from where the Prince and Princess of Wales and their 3 children were thought to be sleeping. The thieves were targeting equipment at Shaw Farm, which is a working farm within the grounds of the Windsor perimeter, about half a mile from Adelaide Cottage, which is where the Waleses live. 2 men managed to scale a 6-foot fence at night and made their getaway by smashing through Shaw Farm gate in a stolen quad bike and pickup truck. The gate was so badly damaged it had to be replaced, according to the Sun newspaper. Thames Valley Police said in a statement, at around 11:45 p.m. on Sunday the 13th of October, we received a report of burglary at a property on Crown Estate land near the A308 in Windsor. Offenders entered a farm building and made off with a black Isuzu pickup and a red quad bike. They then made off towards the Old Windsor Datchet area. No arrests have been made at this stage and an investigation is ongoing. Windsor Castle is the oldest and largest occupied castle in the world. Founded by William the Conqueror in the 11th century, it has since been home of 40 monarchs. The Great Kitchen is the oldest working kitchen in the country, built in the reign of Edward III. It has been used for over 750 years. It is used today for state occasions hosted by His Majesty the King, feeding hundreds of guests, and it would have been used to prepare food for the wedding reception of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle in 2018. 2 receptions were held that day, reportedly. The first was for those attending the ceremony and was hosted by Queen Elizabeth II. It took place in St George's Hall, which was badly damaged in that fire and restored to its original look. Singer Elton John is understood to have performed for the guests. Prince Harry and the then Prince Charles gave speeches. During the coronavirus pandemic, Queen Elizabeth II and the Duke of Edinburgh isolated at the castle with a small group of staff known as HMS Bubble. In April 2021, Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, passed away there at the age of 99. The funeral was relatively small due to coronavirus restrictions. His coffin was brought from the castle down to St George's Chapel on a custom Land Rover he helped design. Very sadly, the Queen was pictured sitting alone in the chapel, tugging at the nation's heartstrings. Following Queen Elizabeth II's death in September 2022, the Queen was buried alongside her late husband inside St George's Chapel within the grounds of Windsor Castle. King George VI and Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, are also buried there, alongside the ashes of the Queen's sister, Princess Margaret. Despite the fire and threats from intruders, Windsor Castle has survived almost 1,000 years and is still going strong. I'm Cameron Walker. Don't forget to subscribe to GBM Royal.
At GB News, we are proud to stand for you, for the Britain that you love, and for the values that you believe in. We are your fearless champions, but we need your support. From just £5 a month, you can make sure that your views are always heard. GB News is the only news channel with the courage to say what the silent majority are really thinking. If it matters to you, it matters to us. Join thousands of members and become part of the GB News community today. Go to gbnews.com/support.